in it for some reason, and uh, I was working at a lumber yard at the time, and some guys came in with fresh tattoos on them, and I asked, "Where did you get those?" And the guy's name Mike Luckett that was doing it, and he was doing it out of his house. So I just got more and more interested to the point I had to get a tattoo. And then Mike Luckett came to my house to tattoo me at my kitchen table. And I was really more interested in doing tattoos than getting them at that time. And so I just had one for a few years. But anyway, Mike tattooed me. And with using a plastic stencil, he said, "Why don't you cut it?" And then I ended up borrowing his equipment, and he let me recolor a tiny little tattoo on him, and loaned me his stuff. And he said, "Oh, I think I'm going to go to hell for tattooing, so I'll loan it." So that's how I got my start.
So you started basically at home and then
Yep.
picked up to working at actual studios, such as, where did you work?
Well, what happened after that? That was in '79, and I was just on my own, trial and error. I had an acquaintance from high school that lived right down the street by chance, and he wanted to get a lot of tattoos. So I was working in my kitchen trying to figure it out. And then I went to art school at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh in 1982. And there, through a friend of mine, Nason Gig, he knew Red Schuster, who was there in Pittsburgh. And Red he had a shop set up in his house. At one point, he was in a head shop tattooing in like a back room, but yeah, wasn't going on when I met him. But he had a room in his house, and he also tattooed at county fairs within about an hour of Pittsburgh. So in the summer of '83 and the summer of '84, I did that with him. And then a good friend of his, and who became a good friend of mine, was Duke Miller. And Duke did it too, where Red was really heavily covered with tattoos at that time. And he would take his shirt off and stand out front of the van. And he was the barker, whatever you want to call it, that got the ball rolling. And Duke and I were in there doing tattoos, and Red had been doing it for 10 years already. And he helped me out a lot at that point, and so did Duke. And then at the end of art school, it was 1984. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I was way more interested in tattooing than anything else. And then Red was acquainted with J.C. Fly, that had J.C. Fly Tattoo in Medford, New York. And he put in a good word for me with Fly, and I ended up going up there. And then Patty Kelly at the time was my girlfriend, later became my wife, that we had met in art school, and she went with me. And then Fly was going to Apache Junction, Arizona with his girlfriend. Her family said, "Oh, they need a tattoo shop out here, Fly. There's no tattoo shops." Well, he goes out there, and it turns out it was a retirement community. So that didn't really work out.
No.
And he came back about 7 months later. And at that point, it was the three of us, and really not enough work there in Long Island. It was a small shop, kind of in a odd location, sort of in a alley in a little strip mall.
So we're in the mid 80s, more or less.
Yeah, well, we were at Fly's from fall of '84 to fall of '85. Then we went to Richmond, Virginia, to work for a guy named Gary Childress. He was a shop owner, but and our friend Frank Mills was in Richmond already and worked at a little shop for Gary, and he had two shops. And Gary actually didn't tattoo or anything. He locked into the lease, and it was called Creative Designs. When he had it, it was a house that had been transformed into a tattoo shop. And actually, Danny Fowler had it there before, and it was called Pelican Sunrise when Danny had it. And that's where Frank apprenticed. And my understanding is that Tom Beasley and Julie Moon, who later they had Dragon Moon Tattoo in Glen Burnie, Maryland, the three of them all apprenticed with Danny Fowler. And I'm pretty sure Danny's still in Roanoke, Virginia. And he came up, I think the name was Time Machine, was the name of his tattoo supply company. And he built machines and everything. And even back then, Danny was known as a good machine builder, and he built me a liner back then.
Gabe, yes, you can. I would like to show some of your photos from the past while we're talking. So, yeah, see, when you were a child, and then like I think when you were 40, more or less, based on what I read.
Right.
And Gabe has a few more in there.